There are two types of contracts that you need to be familiar with. First is called an adhesion contract, and second is called an unconscionable contract. Now, the difference is an adhesion contract, for example, would have penalties against you, but not against the party who wrote the contract. Or the penalties against you may be more severe than the penalty against the party who wrote the contract. Now, on an unconscionable contract, it is not equitable, all right, between all parties concerned. The party that wrote the contract has the contract so heavily slanted in their favor, all right, it gives them all the benefits, and it gives you all the grief, all the costs. So courts will handle these types of contracts in different ways. Some courts will just say this contract is not legally binding and they'll not recognize it. While other courts will take a different approach. Some courts may take just the section or sections within the contract that it deems to be unfair, okay, and then it will enforce the rest of the contract. It really just depends on your jurisdiction. Now, all contracts have one thing in common. All right, there's three elements that makes up any contract: an offer, an acceptance, and consideration. Consideration has to be something of value. All right, like some contracts will have a monetary value of $1. All right, but all these contracts are not difficult to read and understand as long as you can comprehend what you're reading, kind of like reading a book. As long as you can understand the story, you can comprehend what you're reading. Many people tend to get lost in the verbiage that attorneys use, the whereas and the therefores and things like that. Don't worry about those things. Get to the meat of it. All right? And it sometimes helps to have you a pad and paper, and as you're reading through a contract, make a note about the different elements. Make yourself a little list of the different elements of the contract. Make sure you understand. And if you still, are having a difficult time, Lord, this is a rough road. If you're still having a difficult time understanding the terms of the contract, please find an attorney. Have them review the contract and go over it with you in detail. I got to get in another lane. This borders on abuse. But I wanted you to be familiar with those terms. And the reason I wanted you to be familiar with those terms is some companies will like to assume the fact that you're an idiot and you couldn't comprehend the terms and conditions of the contract and that you don't have enough money to go hire an attorney. They assume that they can just hose you and you're not going to do anything about it. So understand those terms and understand the difference between them, okay? If you have any questions, by all means, please shoot me an email. Post your comments below. But as I've said before, I'm not an attorney. I did work as a litigation assistant for quite a while, but I found out in short order that The legal profession is too political, and it just is not for me. But anyway, that's a story for a different day. You guys pay attention to those terms, know the differences, and you take care. I'll see you down the road. Bye.